Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery preparing to feed a worm bin. As you can see, I got some yummy pumpkins set over there on the side, but only bucket number 1 is going to be fed. In bucket number 2, we're performing a little bit of a test here with these African night crawlers, and the test started 24 days ago, and the plan right now is to go another 24 days. So let's see, did it start 25 days ago? I'm starting to get a little bit confused, but I believe there was a 12-day interval since we started the test. We came back in here and we fed these little guys. And all we did was we just took a little peek just to see how the level is sort of dropping in here, but we made a promise to ourselves not to interfere with this bucket. So I figured all we would do is put it out here on the bench and take a glance at it, but not even lift up the covers. Because the whole idea was to set it and forget it. So this is all we're going to do as far as talking about bucket number 2, because we're still 25 days away from the completion of this test. The aim was to bring these systems to 100 days of age, and since they're 75 days old today, we've still got 2.5 more weeks to go before we have the chance to check in on bucket number 2 to see how things are going. But over here in bucket number 1, we're going to keep to our promise of checking in regularly and feeding these little guys. So in addition to giving them some pumpkin, we're also going to try to bring the level up here by adding a whole bunch of leaves too. When I started this test, I contemplated the idea of maybe setting aside an equal number of leaves to what had been piled up into bucket number 2 to fill it up, and then try to divvy that out equally over the period of time that was set for this test. There was 7 weeks set for the performing of this test. I just got a little bit lazy. I didn't feel like going to that level of detail. It's not so much a scientific test that needs stringent controls on accuracy, but I did kind of watch the video from when the test was launched to see roughly how many handfuls of material was piled into that other system. And I tried to revisit how much had been placed in here so far since we started the test. And I just got this funny feeling that we've got a long way to go if we wanted to really get caught up in terms of having piled in an equal amount of bedding material into this system to match what was placed into the set it and forget it bucket number 2. So I guess that gives us the latitude here to be really generous with the bedding. And luckily my box of leaves has been replenished. It's almost full, so we could really go pretty much as generous as we want. I guess the key difference is that when the bucket number 2 was set up for this test, the leaves that I placed in there had been soaked, totally soaked, to get them nice and wet, so that we wouldn't just pile that system full of dry stuff. We wanted all that material to be nice and wet so that the worms can easily start making use of that as bedding and start roaming around in it. Here, I've been pretty much sticking to applying the bedding dry, just taking the leaves right out of my box and piling it in here, but I feel like it's a fair test because because what I'm doing is when I'm feeding them, I'm usually giving them some sort of juicy stuff. And I mean, if you look at these bits of pumpkin, they're already thawed out. They came out of the freezer, and as they thaw, they just start to emit juice. So I've got this feeling, besides the fact that the material in this system is already pretty damp, from what I can tell, combined with the dampness going in with the foods that we're giving them, I think we're okay giving them dry leaves without causing some sort of a problem. I mean, you saw what happened when we excavated the middle where we fed last time. The leaves that we put in last time were still in here, in large part untouched, because they were still kind of dry. I just don't remember what kind of food we added last time, so maybe it could have been juicier to moisten those leaves to make them easier for the worms to take advantage of and start occupying. But I've got a feeling by putting these nice juicy pumpkin bits on top of some dry leaves will provide the worms with enough moisture down there within the newly added bedding to give them the ability to roam into it. So I'm trying to excavate a fairly good sized hole into which we can add a pretty good amount of bedding, leaves basically. Trying to match, well, I don't know about matching. I'm seriously even considering altering the stakes here, changing the test so that we would actually bring the test to an end at some point beyond 100 days of age, at a point where we do feel like we've added as much leafy matter to this over the course of I don't know how many feedings and I don't know how much time to equate to what had been placed in there all at once into bucket number 2. That was just a little brainstorm I had, but I would guess that would probably take us closer to day 150, at which point bucket number 2 would have fallen way behind in terms of getting all kinds of yummy kitchen scraps to nibble on. I mean, the leaves themselves are a perfectly suitable food for the worms, so they should be just fine over there, but it's certainly not an apples and apples type of a test in terms of what each bin is getting. It's just like a little bit of a novelty test we're performing here to see what happens. No particular, hypothesis in terms of what to expect. Just a little twist on what we'd normally be doing in here to see what happens. So I'm wondering if perhaps rather than piling it all in at once, maybe we can even drop in a few pieces and nest them in between layers of dry, so that maybe that would give that stuff a little bit better chance at getting moistened. And I'm even wondering how generous we can go today. It seems like we've given ourselves quite a bit of space over here to pile in a whole lot if we wanted to. So we can go generous, I think. I'm even wondering if it would make sense to sprinkle in a little bit of water. I'm not going to worry about it. Hopefully the juiciness of the pumpkin going in here is sufficient to offset the dryness of the leaves. And then hopefully by just the worms cruising in and out of this stuff, kind of just stirring the contents of what's in here around, maybe that'll also aid in the moistening of the material down in here. So it looks like I've got 4 more chunks remaining that we can add in after just a little bit more leafy matter, and then that'll be their feeding. Pretty good sized, generous feeding one they're getting here today. And I'm wondering how it's going to look when we get back in here. I'm wondering if the dryness of these leaves is going to be enough to dissuade the worms from coming in here to check the food out. Hopefully not. Hopefully we've applied the stuff in such a way that it, provides the worms with a nice, comfortable place to go. Hopefully the surrounding material also has sufficient moisture in it to help moisten things. I mean, we are covering with plastic that hopefully also triggers a little bit of recirculation of moisture in here. I mean, it almost makes me wonder if it would make sense to just grab a little bit of water and spill it right down the middle here. I mean, I've got my BTI solution. We could just as easily grab it. It's right behind me. And perhaps right down the middle where all the leaves were placed, let it trickle right down onto those dry leaves, possibly accounting for enough moisture to offset the dryness of those leaves. I don't know. I'm always curious to hear what people think. I'm always very interested in the feedback people provide, so I'm wondering what people think of what we've done here today and some of my ideas for trying to make this a fair test. Do we go beyond 100 days? Do we try to extend the test to a number of feedings that results in us feeling like we've added as many leaves over the course of those multiple feedings and multiple check-ins over time as what we added to bin bucket number 2 when we started the test? Or do we just go till day 100 and then see what we see in bucket number 2 and bring it to an end? I'm open to altering the original game plan, but I'm also all for bringing the test to an end 25 days from now when the systems hit 100 days of age. We'll have one more check-in, I think, between now and the finish to give them another feeding, build things up a little further. And I mean, if you look at it, it does almost look like we're starting to come pretty close in the level of these two systems, don't you think? I don't know. This keeps dropping. If we keep raising this, maybe we'll have some sort of a fair, even, leveled out playing field over here. when it's all said and done. I don't know. So let's leave it at that. That's it for the check-in now with our 75-day-old buckets, making for what hopefully people believe to be an interesting test. So hopefully you'll be back here next time we check in, probably another 12 or 13 days from now, about halfway between now and the finish. But until then, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks so much for watching. Bye now.